Train, 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 train lover 16. The train, for its size, is the fastest vehicle on land. And the locomotives of Redcliff Loco Yard are the power behind the stations, industries and train lines that make up the well-renowned Redcliff and Guinea Bridge Railway. This is Redcliff Railway Tales. It had been just over a week since Ethen and Henry the helicopter had their race. Ethen had been the winner and Henry didn't mind this. However, even though Henry had offered his help to Ethen whenever he may need it from him, Ethen was sure that he would never need this helicopter's help. But this would not turn out to be so. One day, Ethen was feeling ill. Workmen had tried to make him better, but it was no use. That day, Mr. Eric came to see Ethen. The workmen have tried everything, Ethen, but nothing seems to be making you better, so you will have to go to Crewe Works for major repairs. Dennis will take you up to Guinea Bridge Junction later, so you can be transferred to the national network and taken up to Crewe. Ethen was very miserable about his illness, but he was also happy when he went off to Crewe to be repaired. Shortly after Ethen had departed, Mr. Eric went to speak to Jacob. Jacob, while Ethen is away, I'd like you to do all of his work for him. Sir Callum will try to help you as much as possible, and if necessary, I could get one of the other engines to help you both too. Traffic on this railway has been rapidly increasing thanks to this hot weather, and I'm thinking of hiring, or possibly even buying some extra engines to help you all out with this unexpected heavy demand. Jacob didn't mind being given this extra work. He would do anything to help out his friends if they were ill. He and Sir Callum worked hard to keep up with the demand, and they didn't even need that much extra help. Jacob soon met Henry the helicopter for the first time and quickly made friends with him, giving him a big welcome to the Redcliff and Guinea Bridge area. Hello, you must be Henry the helicopter. It's so great to finally meet you. Very nice to meet you too. You must be Jacob. Ethan's been telling me all about you and his friends. I hope the lovely people at Crewe will make him well again soon. Take care of the coaches for him, will you, Jacob? Ethan's sure to miss them while he's away. Of course I will, Henry. I'm sure he's missing all of us very much and will be so happy and well by the time he comes home. I'd better be on my way now. Can't keep my passengers waiting, especially the foreign ones. See you around, Henry. After that, Jacob set off again with the foreigners on board. Jacob was always very gentle with the coaches whenever he took them out, and they were very impressed with how he handled passenger trains.
He has such nice manners. It really is a pleasure to go out with him.
About 1 week later, Ethen came back and Sir Callum told him how well Jacob had managed. Ethen was very pleased to be home and to hear about this news. Crewe had left Ethan's handbrake very stiff. It made his brakes feel as though they were hard on, when in fact they were not. As a result, Ethen and his coaches often overran the platforms. Ethen found this most embarrassing. Gradually with time though, he and his firemen learned to be extra careful. But one day, Ethan's fireman was taken ill and a relief man took his place. On that very day, Ethen was scheduled to take a train of empty flat wagons to Guinea Bridge Junction. The fireman coupled him up at the loco yard as Brian and Emma were both busy. There, Ethan took the wagons up to Redcliff station. He had to wait in the station's passing loop for David to enter with the morning rush hour passenger service before he could continue to Cambridge Junction. But as he slowed down, his stiff brakes squealed and he was only just able to stop before he reached the points. And unfortunately, because of this, the young and hasty fireman added 2 and 2 to make 5. Your brakes don't seem to be in order, Ethan. I'd better give them a quick oiling just to ease them up and make it easier for you to apply them.
There's no need for that. My brakes are fine. I just need to apply them harder than normal today, that's all. Also, you need to make sure that my handbrake is tightly on.
Oh, nonsense. Your handbrake is tightly on. And I heard about what happened to Robert a couple of months ago. I don't want the same thing happening to you, so I am going to give your brakes some oil.
Alright then, if you say so.
The fireman oiled all around Ethan's brakes. It didn't take him that long to do. Then he went to join Carl the station master on the platform to wait for David to enter with his passenger train. Once David was clear of the single line section, Ethan could safely carry on to Cambridge Junction with the empty freight train. Ethan simmered happily. Then he saw David slowly approaching.
Not long now.
But what Ethan didn't realise was that the fireman had put a little bit too much oil on his brakes. Also, it's not very noticeable, but Redcliff Station lies on a gentle gradient, and this combined with the fact that the fireman was confident that Ethan's handbrake was hard on, despite the fact that that wasn't the case, makes me absolutely sure that you can correctly guess what happened next. Ethan very slowly began to move down the gradient. He's tried to put his main brakes on, but the excess oil made his brake pads slip against his wheels. To his horror, Ethan realised that he could not put his brakes on and stop himself. The wagon saw this as a perfect opportunity to cause mischief. They bumped into each other, and knocking the conductor off the train, they began pushing Ethan faster and faster away from the station. The fireman turned around and tried to climb back on board, but it was no use. The train was simply going too fast now. Ethan was now a runaway, and there was no one on board to help him stop. The wagons continued to push him along without hesitation or guilt. Go on, faster, faster!
No, please, I don't want to go any faster.
Ethan whistled as long and as loud as he could to warn other trains that he couldn't stop, and with the huge momentum of the wagons and plenty of steam, he simply kept on going. Back at Redcliff Station, Mr. Eric, Station Master Carl and the relief fireman were all discussing a plan to stop the runaway. Well, this is a tricky one, isn't it? Ethan's train has no crew on board, his brakes aren't working and the wagons are pushing him down the tracks. We need an idea to stop him, and fast. This looks like a job for international rescue. We must send out a call to them at once.
No, stop the music, stop the music. Firstly, international rescue doesn't even exist. They're just a fictional organisation. They might exist in about 50 years from now, but that's not the point. They can't help us is the point. Secondly, even if they did exist, I don't think this is serious enough for them to be called out here, or the regular emergency services for that matter. I think we can sort this situation out ourselves.
Go on then, Carl, what's your plan?
I propose that we get one of the engines to go after Ethan's train with me on board. Once we catch up to him, I will couple the engines up and then get him to brake and start slowing the train. Meanwhile, I will jump along the train from wagon to wagon, manually applying the brakes of each one as I do so further slowing the train. However, I am not the fittest or youngest of men, so I can't run too fast and it would be too difficult for me to run all the way into Ethan's cab anyway. Especially if we are to slow him down enough to stop him from derailing on the sharp curve just before Gimmibridge Junction. So I propose that we send for an inspector. No, not that inspector, you stupid. Just cut the music. Okay, can we just stop with the pop culture references in this episode now, please? Yes? Thank you. Right, so as I was saying, I propose that we send for an inspector to fly over to Gimmibridge Junction in Henry the helicopter so that he gets there before Ethan comes into the station. Then he can get into Ethan's cab as he passes and screw on the handbrake, bringing Ethan to a stop. He should hopefully be going slow enough by then to enable the inspector to do that. So Mr. Eric, sir, what do you think about this plan?
Well, it sounds a little bit risky, but I am willing to give your plan a chance, Kyle, so let's put it into action.
Thank you, sir. We just need to keep our fingers crossed from this point onwards and hope for the best.
Carl was ready when Peter arrived.
Great to see that you're ready, Carl. Now jump on board and let's go.
Carl did so at once, and off they went.
We'll catch him. We'll catch him up.
Peter raced backwards along the track with every last milliliter of diesel fuel he had. Until at long last he caught up with Ethan. The automatic couplings did their job and Peter was secured to Ethan's train. Unfortunately, the impact of the coupling caused Ethan to be jerked over the top of the Beckstake flyover, and the momentum caused him to continue over the other side of it. The speed of the train made it difficult for Carl to secure the couplings, but they were soon safely tightened. After that, Peter braked as hard as he could, while Carl ran as fast as he could along Ethan's train, manually applying the brakes of each of the wagons. He was soon out of breath. He had known this would happen, and so it was time to commence the second phase of his plan. Henry the helicopter was ready for action. The inspector was soon on board, and together the two took off into the sky. At long last, Ethan's train was slowing down, but he was getting very tired now.
I need to stop. Really, I need to stop.
As they neared Guinea Bridge Junction Station, Ethan saw Henry land. They entered the platform slowly enough for the inspector to act. Judging his moment, the inspector scrambled into Ethan's cab and screwed the brakes hard on. At last, Ethan stopped. Everyone was very relieved. Then they all thanked Henry. Think nothing of it. I'm glad to be of service any time. Well, that must have been quite a shock for you, Ethan. We must all take precautions in the future to ensure that something like this never happens again. Everyone agreed to this, especially Ethan. He was soon uncoupled and Peter pulled him back to the loco yard for inspection. The wagons were later loaded and Peter came back to deliver them to Redcliff. Mr. Eric came to speak to Ethan later that night. He unfortunately had all bad news. Hello, Ethan. I'm afraid I've got bad news and even worse news. The bad news is, after looking over you, the inspector has concluded that your brakes are too faulty for you to remain in service, so you will have to go back to Crewe first thing tomorrow for a few days to have their problems rectified. The even worse news is, due to the higher than normal traffic on the railway at the moment, we cannot do without any one of the other engines. Therefore, we are going to have to hire a spare engine to do your work for you.
Oh no, Mr. Eric, you're not suggesting...
Ethan, I'm sorry. I tried every other railway and loco yard that I can think of, but none of them could spare one of their engines, except for the Fort William and Inverness Railway, the home railway of Jack.
Oh no, please sir, anyone but Jack.
Ethan had very good reason to be so negative about Jack. The last time he had visited the Redcliff and Guinea Bridge Railway, Jack had caused so much trouble for the other locos, the railway staff and the passengers. He had even caused the death of one of the railway's conductors after crashing into Freddy's stalled freight train. No one on the R&GR wanted him to come back, but now it seemed like the railway had no other choice. Ethan, I know this railway has had a bad taste of Jack in the past, but you never know. He might have changed a lot since then.
Yeah, I guess you're right, sir. And at least I won't be around to have to put up with his rudeness for the first few days at least.
Yes, well, we'll just have to wait and see whether or not he has changed since he was last here. Good night now, Ethan.
Good night, Mr. Eric.
Whether he had changed or not, Jack's first few days back on the R&GR were certain to be eventful, but that's a story for another day.